Do you have a great admiration for people who don't even exist? Do you know histories of fake worlds better than you know your own? Do you geek out? If so, geek out with us. Here, now. It's the Geek for All show.
Hey, it is in fact the Geek for All, and welcome to it. I am your host, Geekmeister, joined by my co-host, Winchester.
Hello.
And so the Oscars just happened,
Yes.
and we're going to talk about them because some interesting things happened there, actually sort of relevant to... Well, I mean, one thing that I think really just everyone is probably going to be talking about, so why not talk about it? And then some relevant things. Then later on after that, we're going to be talking about RWBY Season 4. That wrapped up just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, everyone's had a chance to see it now, and I think there's some interesting things to talk about in there, so...
Definitely.
We're gonna get at it. For right now, the Oscars, I'm sure you've seen the memes at this point. I think in the first time in Oscars history, someone got handed the wrong envelope and was then immediately fired backstage, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And it wasn't even like some intern. I'm pretty sure it was some guy. Like, I didn't read the article on who it was, but they definitely named him. And he was definitely like somebody who worked for the Academy. And I would imagine it worked there for numerous years. Like, it wasn't just some like teenage intern that like it was his first Academy Awards and he was like 18 or whatever. Like, this was some seasoned veteran, I think. And yep. And not even for one of the awards that's like slightly lower on the ladder. Best Picture.
Yeah, like, because no one would have noticed if it was like for like, I don't know,
best makeup or
some,
like sound design.
Yeah, things of that nature, which get overlooked constantly, would have been overlooked in this case as well, and it would have been like, oh, ha ha ha, this is like some front page.
Yeah.
That's like, just ridiculous.
Best Picture. So if you haven't seen the video, which in this day and age, like especially nowadays, back like 20, even 10 years ago, anything that happened at the Oscars, even though the Oscars are live, you probably would have had to read a newspaper the next morning to know what had happened. Not this year, kids.
No, we just kind of know these things immediately. At this point.
So they went out to, I don't even know who it was that announced it, but the guy who announced Best Picture was handed the Best Actress envelope.
Which was Emma Stone for La La Land, and everyone thought that La La Land had like won another Oscar. It won 5 already at that point, and but no, the Oscar for Best Picture went to Moonlight.
Yes.
Which by the way, props LGBT community, woot.
Yeah.
And but there was probably a lot of like upset on that part, like, oh my god, another fucking La La Land, you know?
Right. Exactly.
And then suddenly it was like, oh, no, Moonlight, that's going to get another one for Best Actress. Which also, congratulations, Emma Stone. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great, you know.
But yeah, no, really, and joined by a couple of things that were, I guess, supposed to happen. Well, really just one thing that was super, super weird. One awesome thing, actually. The awesome thing, of course, being that Harry Potter finally has a film in the franchise that has an Oscar attached to it.
Yeah, a franchise that is over 10 years, is now 20 years old.
Oh, no, that can't be.
97.
No.
Well, okay, the books are 20 years old.
Okay,
The movies are about 15 years old.
Yeah, okay.
Decade. At least.
Old. Oh, yeah, no. More than a decade.
Constantly nominated, and numerous, never like Best Actress or Best Actor, but just constantly nominated for certain things. And sometimes they got kind of screwed. And sometimes it was never the best. So, okay. But Fantastic Beasts got Best Costume Design.
Which is like, which is understandable because the costumes were really, really awesome. But it's so hilarious that this is the one with the best costume design. Because if you think about the costumes that have been in those other movies, like there's some the kids stuff got really boring after a while for we have to make it relatable to teenage. The ones you need to make it related to already relate to the story. No. But in fact, actually, Daniel Radcliffe was super jealous of the costumes in this one because he never got to wear the cool costumes.
Right. This was all the adults' costumes.
Yeah.
This is the period costumes, 1920s. The adults going to their version of the Ministry. We get to see the Oars in their own uniforms, which sometimes I make fun of because they had to wear fedoras. It's kind of weird, but okay. But like, they did a great job. Like
they did.
They captured this world. You could look at the costumes and be like, I know exactly what that is. I know exactly what time period it is.
No, they did an amazing job with the time period, for sure. I just I don't know, some of Dumbledore's costumes and stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's interesting that finally it took them, because I don't think they were even nominated for costume in other years. And this time around, I think just probably because the costume committee probably has a hard-on for period piece, and in that case, if that's what's going on here, understandable, because seriously, as far as period work goes, the costuming's astounding. Unbelievable.
Well, and with that, a lot of while the Harry Potter stuff was coming, the original series was coming out as movies, they were going up against very heavy hitters in nominations for costumes. So, to be fair, genre pieces never really win. Like, it's just the way it is. Lord of the Rings, despite being this huge thing, never really win. Star Wars never really wins. Superhero movies never win.
Yeah.
Until this year.
Logan.
Oh, yes.
I'm thinking Logan. Like if Logan looks as good as it, like that actually, and I think actually with that first trailer, that seemed like they were kind of dogging for like at least a Oscar nomination nod.
My thing is that it's coming out very early in the year,
and which is always very bad for Oscar stuff. Yes.
They normally wait till a little bit closer to the nomination season. Things in January tend not to get nominated. Things in February tend not to get nominated.
This is true. If one was going to get nominated. But unfortunately, it still wouldn't be the first one to win an Oscar. Because, again, this year, Suicide Squad... It hurts to say.
It does.
Suicide Squad is an Oscar-winning film. Wow.
So it won Best Makeup and Hairstyling. Was up against Star Trek Beyond, and I believe it's a foreign film called A Man Called Ove, which I have not seen.
I've not either, unfortunately. I don't know much about this one.
But it was one of 3, and Best Makeup and Hairstyling, which, okay, to be fair, they did a pretty decent job, I have to admit. Okay, the Joker stuff, but like, styling Harley, styling some of the other guys, I think they did a good, looks-wise.
It did do a good job. And I actually liked the look of Jared Leto's Joker. I've said this. Like, it wasn't his...
It was very different.
It was very different.
It was very different. It was very gangster.
I think they were appealing to the fact that he's technically supposed to be a gangster. Like, just kind of an odd-looking sort of gangster. And they wanted to modernize that look and make it a look like, what does a gangster look like? What does a kind of thuggish gangbang type do? Like,
exactly.
That.
Yeah.
Facial tattoos and kind of clothing in weird,
but very over the top.
Yes.
Like almost like he was trying to impersonate others in that seat of power and just kept going with it.
Right.
He was like, oh, well, those guys have tattoos, so I'm going to get all these tattoos on my face and be totally badass,
Yeah, they may have overplayed it a tinge, I suppose.
But with the way he is, he's over the top.
He is over the top, so it sort of fits. So I think that was appropriate. And I think Leto actually did get a good. Again, we as we discussed before, hard to tell, hard to see. But even despite all of this,
this shitty movie can now claim Academy Award winner on its DVD boxes. It's going to be in... Okay, maybe not. But it might be in the section of Academy Award winners next to La La Land and all of these other... Just...
Oh, it hurts.
Out of all of the superhero movies we've seen,
Oh,
this
God.
is the one that wins an Oscar?
It's really and this is why I'm dogging for Logan, because I feel like something quality from the nerdum realm
would be great.
Would be great to
it would get us in the door.
Yeah, seriously, because I feel like that's what they were trying to do with even putting this one like in there as a to be voted upon by the Academy,
right?
In the first place. I think that was the kind of their angle on it, was like, yeah, let's give the nerds a nod because it's such a popular culture. But
it's hard to say thank you when it was that movie. Out of all of the hundreds of movies that came out last year, to be fair, of superhero movies, the pool's not that big, but still,
I feel like more quality films have certainly been
not even superhero, just of genre, because it's very much like that in the literary world too, where genre books, the literary fiction books, get shit on.
And honestly, if you wanted to give us a nod, could you have doubled up on the nerd thing and entered not only Harry Potter, but Batman versus Superman for the costumes thing?
Right.
Because I would not have been mad about Batman versus Superman being for if it was for costumes.
Or Rogue One for costumes.
Either way, that I wouldn't be mad about those being Oscar films for that purpose.
Not at all.
But Suicide Squad, I don't care how good the makeup was. That is just too crappy of a movie.
Yeah, it couldn't save it. It couldn't save the rest of the movie.
I mean, granted, I don't put a lot of stock into these kind of award shows anyway. I thought the Oscars has just kind of been boneheaded for years, and just sort of but I feel like they've stooped to a new low.
It's very much now. Yeah. It is. It always seems to be a political thing. I'm very glad for a lot of the winners. A lot of the winners this year, a lot of presenters made some quiet political moments. The women of Hidden Figures, when they came out, they actually brought one of the historical Hidden Figures, one of the women that it's based off of, onto stage with them. Like, she came out with them.
Which is phenomenal.
Which is amazing.
That's just excellent.
So the people
I haven't seen Hidden Figures yet either. I feel bad, and I mean, not that I feel bad, I just haven't had time to go see it, but I want to go fucking see the movie. The movie looked fantastic. I haven't even seen Lego Batman yet, so I'm just behind on movies at the moment.
So those that allowed themselves to have a voice got to have a voice, and they used that moment wisely. For the most part. Then you have Jimmy Kimmel singing Schuyler Sisters from Hamilton. So, and then he ragged on Lin-Manuel Miranda a lot. But, what can you do?
Yeah. No.
And he missed his damn EGOT. It's okay. So, Lin Miranda is the writer of Hamilton. He also wrote a song for Moana. And if he had won the Oscar for Moana, because it was up for Best Song,
he would have already just EGOT it, which is like
at the youngest.
Crazy. Because I think
it's only a handful of people.
It's a handful of people, and they've all been composers. It's always a composer because it's the only category that exists in the Oscars, Emmys, Grammys, and Tonys.
However, Viola Davis is a Grammy away from it. But she's not a recording singer. She's not a recording artist. But as of last night, she's the Grammy away. So we had a lot of great historical moments. But again, it's all it's a lot of the industry patting themselves on the back kind of thing.
And that's what gets into and it's such a hard thing because some of that is actually important to, if art has any sort of importance, it's trying to sway large groups of people on certain things at the same time. So some of that is important, and at the same time, some of it is grandstanding and patting people on the back who don't deserve to have their backs patted for really anything. It always seems better when you just sort of do it and just let the work speak for itself on that regard and don't try to ham it up too much.
Right. But it is nice sometimes when these big moments recognize those.
It is, and there's some really there's good parts to it. but
it's hard to appreciate.
It's hard to appreciate sometimes when you know that that people think that like that's like kind of like doing everything that needs to be done with it, when the creator of that person ought to be the one patting themselves on the back for that kind of thing. Like, the Academy shouldn't necessarily be getting the backpacks that I know that they fucking are because of that.
Exactly.
and so yeah, it becomes really, really frustrating on that kind of level, because it's like, well, that shit is important, but at the same time, like, you think that it's more important than it is. It's often the first steps in really doing something about it. But things like the actresses bringing one of the actual women who the story that they were telling up with, that's phenomenal. That is good. That things of that nature is good, because
it's using that platform to say something important. Yeah.
Without necessarily like a lot of flash to it. Like, that's just something very, very simple. That's just it. It's not sitting there and being like, yeah, it's not the George Clooney smug speech that they make fun of in South Park.
Exactly.
So accurate.
Exactly.
Black people couldn't get a job. They were working in Hollywood as the most stereotypical black people imaginable, dude. Holy shit.
Exactly. So.
But anyway, but hence why these things kind of wind up having a political means to them. And some of that is important. It's almost always overdone, and really, really just dumb choices are made sometimes. I'm not mad about this. I've heard both La La Land and Moonlight are supposed to be phenomenal. So I'm not too mad. There's nothing in my mind this year that was really like skipped. So I think probably a decent year. And again, I'm excited for Harry Potter.
Yay, finally.
Fucking Suicide Squad. Just fucking like that. That just feels like there was like this thorn in my side, and I didn't know it was there. Like, it was kind of just sticking in like the dead skin and just hanging out, and it was fine. And someone just like, hey, what's that? And just like poked it all the way. Like,
yeah. But that means that maybe in the future, because they're talking about I guess they've already greenlit the Harley Quinn movie, or they've said that they have. So maybe this will help. Maybe that now that they can have more eyes on it, it won't be a total train wreck.
I certainly hope so, and now it needs to not be like
now it needs to not
the reason that this actually bothers me, I think I didn't really like analyze fully like why this bothers me as much as I did, but as I'm sitting here, I think the reason it bothers me is because because Harry Potter is sort of, it definitely is nerddom, but it has its own sort of like off to the side.
Oh yeah, it's
thing,
got its own kind of,
and it's a little bit closer into like modern culture. But when it comes to like comic books, like that's the real fringe of like all nerddom and stuff. It kind of always has been, and it's really been working on pushing itself in. And a comic book movie being nominated and then winning is huge, but it's DCU. Oh, I'm sorry. What? No, it was DCUU or DCCU
something like that.
Or something
DCCU.
Ridiculous.
It was that movie and not a movie that we all actually enjoyed.
Which means that now that they've got an Oscar owner, now the other ones have to be good.
Right.
They have to actually, and I don't have any confidence in them knowing their game at this point.
Yeah, we kind of lost that confidence ages ago. So,
Because I think Marvel is going to turn around and be doing some really interesting things. Like, I mean, technically, 21st Century Fox is the one doing Logan.
Right.
But still, there's a lot of other things coming up in Marvel that I think could actually really be some... Like, I think whenever Robert Downey Jr. decides to play Tony Stark for the last time, they're probably going to do something really big for that. I think they're done with Iron Man movies for the most part at this point, but I think they've got one in the can that's going to be like the last Iron Man movie for when he decides. I have to imagine if they're thinking everything through, that they've got one more in the can, and that, depending on what they decide to do with it, if they really centralize it on Tony Stark, that could be something where, like, maybe, I don't know, like, maybe not, like, the whole film or whatever, but maybe Robert Downey Jr. gets to win something, you know? Even if it's just good enough where it's doing so at, like, the Golden Globes and stuff like that, and it's not even necessarily the Oscars. Like, this stuff still kind of matters for that, and it's going to be hard to get their foot in the door in any of these kind of things if, like, the one that won something, like, continues a franchise and that's the...
Yeah, that's the standard. Let's hope not.
Oh, man. But again, you know, I'll continue to just be a cynical asshole and fuck the assers anyway. So, you know. But moving on to things that are completely outside of like the main spectrum of the public eye.
Yes.
RWBY. So RWBY just finished up, and season 4 was a lot of walking around.
It was a lot of the Fellowship of the Ring. It was a lot of walking around, but at the same time, it was very much so. We had a very, very traumatic season 3.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very dramatic, very much a, oh shit, this shit matters kind of season 3. And then we had RWBY Chibi during the summer to kind of as a palate cleanser. I think this was almost still that palate cleanser. Getting back into the world and expanding that world.
It definitely felt like it in a lot of ways. You had a lot of more World of Remnant stuff coming in between episodes this season,
which was nice because then I didn't have to try and read Wikipedia. It was spelled
true.
out.
A lot of things just kind of were just like, oh, okay, this is why. A lot of mysteries that we didn't know have sort of been wrapped up. Like we kind of get Nora and Ren's relationship a little bit better now, and we get to know what his semblance is.
Yes.
And we know what Crow's
cool.
semblance is.
Which is sad.
Yeah. Crow is just a very, very sad individual.
But it was interesting that, going off, so World of Remnant, if you're listening, you know what these are. But regardless,
or at least probably, if you haven't checked out RWBY, we're gonna probably be saying a lot of things that don't make sense. We'll try to explain them.
Yeah. So World of Remnant there are these little narrative moments. There are these narrative episodes in between the regular story. They tell backstory of the world history, family history, and it all tries to tie into the following episode. So we get things like the Schnee family history. We get the Great War history. We get history of Faunus and political history. We get all this stuff all narrated by Crow. I really liked it because then we didn't have to have the narrative bullshit in the episode.
Except where Crow is still Captain Exposition in that one episode.
In that one episode. But at that one episode, it kind of made sense because the kids didn't know. But you can assume that most of the other stuff the kids knew, or at least knew most of.
Enough of anyway, where it was like
it wouldn't have made sense to explain it.
Yeah, and it would have been forced expositional dialogue. No, right. It was a nice way to get around expositional dialogue because some of the worst dialogue can be expositional because and it also just kind of gets ridiculous. If you ever rewatch the opening episode of Supernatural, the conversation that they have to explain to the audience what's been happening since the fire, it's really bad.
It is. So you get a different kind of narrative without being in the narrative.
It's kind of like it actually kind of feels like reading a book that way because sometimes books just have whole chapters that are just like, we're gonna take you away from the story and sort of like go on like this whole thing and then kind of like explain some shit. All right, and now back to the main characters. That's what World of Remnants basically was. And I thought that they used it. I think they had done it in season 3 a little bit. They did like a couple of episodes. They weren't narrated by Crow though. Just it was kind of like a generic voice.
It was actually Salem.
Oh, is that who was narrating them?
Salem is actually the one that narrates them.
Oh, okay. Crow I thought was a better choice though.
Well, you got Vic Mignogna. Like, let's be fair.
Well, I mean, okay. So there's
anime god Vic Mignogna.
Yes, and also just something about
the cynical asshole that it was interesting that he still gave the story, but he had no problem giving his opinions.
Yes.
You got the cynicism.
But more importantly, just because of who Crow is the guy in the background who knows everything. It also made sense to make Crow Captain Exposition in that episode because Crow is Captain Exposition. Any major things that the kids have learned, or not any of them, but a lot of the major things the kids have learned at this point have come out of the mouth of Crow.
Exactly.
Or at least out of him pointing out some kind of inconsistency with their logic. He's that guy. He's the guy who's sitting quietly in the background until you say something stupid and he goes well, why would you think something like that?
Right. And he's now he's the elder. Now that Ozpin is not gone, but he's not Ozpin at the moment.
Yeah.
Which is a whole thing that I want to get into too. 'Cause it's
Yes,
cool.
but
It's
man, like I had not really like. I mean, I guess I knew that Crow was the elder, but I hadn't like.
Yeah.
No one had said that.
But he's the elder in the group. Like, he's the sage. Now that Oz is not within them at the moment. Oz and Glinda are gone.
Oh my
quote unquote
God,
gone.
Crow is.
So Crow's the responsible one. Which is scary in of itself. The drunkard is the responsible one.
Oh man. Oh.
So we get them, and it's very interesting to see the dynamics. It's very interesting to see. So we spent 3 seasons of your team is your life. Your team is your family. You have to rely on your team. If you can't rely on your team, you are nothing.
And now the family's broken up.
And now the family's broken. The band is not back together.
Yeah.
The band broke up.
No, I mean really like kind of in you know, we were just talking about comic books and stuff. It kind of makes a connection in my brain. Like when you read like any of like the Death in or Death of the Family lines, like in Batman and stuff, or any of like those stories like that kind of like surround that, like the breakdown of Batman's family and everything, and the breakdown of the team. Like that's what season 4 kind of felt like. You felt like the aftermath of the breakdown of that team. Like it's gone.
Yeah.
And oh man,
it's gone. So what's left of these characters?
Right. Who are they without that team? Because and that was the interesting thing, because in season 1 they were so not a team.
Oh yeah, but then they became. You got to watch them become the team, and you got to see what glued them together. Specifically, not even with Team RWBY, because Team RWBY kind of okay on their own. There's not one central person that kind of like RWBY's team leader, but they all rely on each other relatively equally. With Team Juniper, it was Pyrrha.
Pyrrha was the glue of that team.
Absolutely.
And its heart and soul. It was
literally.
It was Team Pyrrha and her band of idiots.
Yes.
Like that's what that team
Slightly
was.
competent idiots. Jean not included in that slightly.
Yeah, no. Although he's getting better at his strategy calls. Like,
oh yeah,
you can see the progress that he's making as because he also kind of called shots in that, but sort of after Pyrrha would like guide him like in practice and stuff. Like
he was leader, but he wasn't really leader.
Right.
He needed to look at her for affirmation, and then he would be like, "Oh, guys, we're gonna do this," and he'd look at her, and she'd nod, and then he'd go, "Yeah, we're gonna do this thing." So, not to say that Pyrrha needed to die, because that's not true at all, and I miss her. But she kind of needed to die.
I mean, and she was a great sacrificial lamb.
She was an amazing sacrificial lamb.
We didn't really see it coming.
Nope.
And I don't know if anyone
character.
really knew how much we were going to be upset by her going.
Yeah.
And I don't think it even really like totally sank in for me until season. That was the other thing too. They used the gap between season 3 and season 4 geniusly.
Oh yeah.
Because they let almost the same amount of time pass in the show as passed in real life. So you were at about the same grieving point as everybody else when Jean is doing that. Jean is doing a practice drill that Pyrrha
had
recorded where she almost says that she loves him, but then kind of chickened out and decided not to. And it's the most heartbreaking thing in the universe.
You think you're getting over it and you think you're healing, and then the show would throw this season would throw things like when Jean gets his new armor, and it's made out of Pyrrha's circlet.
Yep.
His shield has her circlet in it. Which becomes then his sword. Fucking our upgrade. The only kid that doesn't have a gun, and they upgraded him. Like, it's insane. This weapon upgrade that we finally get to see at the end of the season.
Which is awesome.
But to see them grow, we get to see Team Ranger now.
Team Ranger. That
Team
is
Ranger,
what,
Team Junior.
I don't think they even did that in the show. I think just the fans decided Team Ranger is what made the most sense.
Exactly. And then you've got the individual stories. You get to see Yang, cocky, egotistical Yang, who thinks she can do anything, fall. And have to claw her way back up one-handed.
And it is not easy for her.
No, and it's phenomenal because you get to see her relationship with her dad. You get to see her relationship with her teachers and become an adult. And it's a whole conversation about the fact that she's an adult now. and you get to realize that she's older than Ruby.
Yeah, because you would really it's obvious in the first season, and then it's like by the time season like Yang is still exactly the same person she'd always been. Ruby had significantly grown up by the time season 3 comes around. And now you get to watch the big sister take her next big step after the little sister has just gone through a big change of her own.
Right.
The way that this show manages to keep the character Ruby as the main character, but make all 3 of the second tier characters like it's amazing. They draw that like they're so nearly as important as she is, and so nearly have the same airtime and everything, but they still keep Ruby it's still just a little more focused around her.
Just a hair.
Her story, just a hair, and they balance that out really, really nicely. You never forget that Ruby is the main character, but you sort of forget that there isn't a main character sometimes.
Exactly, especially out of now 7 of them. Because Team Juniper was originally, when they first started, they weren't scripted to be this. They were supposed to be like Team Coffee, where they were going to come in every once in a while when Ruby needed help or whatever, and then they would just kind of fuck off. And then they started writing, and they realized how important Juniper was. And so they became this thing, and then Ruby and her 3 supporting / main characters, and then these additional 4 that were supposed to be like second, third tier characters became second and first tier characters.
Yeah.
And it's amazing being able to watch them grow. We get to this season was all about, it wasn't even about story, it was about character development.
It completely and utterly was about character development. We got backstories on people that we hadn't totally heard yet.
Yep.
And we got to meet Blake's family.
Which I love. They're so cool.
Blake's family is awesome. And I love how much the mom is in love
with Son.
with Son.
Yes.
And how much the dad hates. It's perfect.
It is.
Dad hates him. Mom likes him. Good stuff.
And we get background from Blake. So it's interesting that we get to see their individual families. We get to see Ruby's on her own, no family. Juniper is her family at this point. Yang we get with her father and her teachers. That's her family. And in Patch. Blake, we get to see her family, and we get to see her family interact in their environment with Sun and with their group. Not Red Fang.
Oh, the White Fang.
White Fang, thank you. Couldn't remember the color. With the White Fang. And the fact that the White Fang, not entirely evil.
No.
Like, not terrorists.
And I like that because that it's unclear what Blake. Everyone seems to be headed. I'm sorry. Where did they end?
Mistral.
Mistral. They ended in Mistral, and it seems like everyone's headed for Mistral. Yang is kind of unclear, but based on the way her bike was facing when she stops, I think that's where she's headed. Although they left that intentionally vague.
Oh yeah.
But Blake, maybe the only one of them not headed in that direction, and because now she's on a quest to get the White Fang back and make it into the group that it started as because it was just a civil rights group.
Right.
This is basically like if, I don't know, somebody dropped out of the Black Panthers, like listened to Dr. King for a while and decided that he was going to take the Black Panthers back.
Right.
Like, that's kind of like what we're talking about here. Except, no, you know what? No, I'm sorry. In fairness, that's not a good enough analogy. More like if somebody from the IRA had talked to a Catholic priest for a while and decided that maybe that wasn't all worth it, and then tried to take the IRA back. That's a much fairer comparison.
Yeah. It's very interesting to see that they're not all bad guys, but the infiltration Adam has and the power that he has. And Blake being like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm taking it back. And the fact that she knows that the White Fang has power. And changing that back to what she knew it as is a game changer. If it happens. If she doesn't, if she doesn't fail.
I mean, it in a lot of ways, like it, with that, you've got, like, each of these characters kind of gaining respect from different people, like, in their own right and stuff. And, like, so technically, so Blake's trying to gain power, like, in this regard. And then you've got Weiss, who has actually just lost all of her power. And so it's interesting to see. Basically, everybody is just kind of, like, on this shift from where their character, like, started, sort of. Like, Blake would have never wanted to have anything to do with, like, an organized structure like that in the beginning because of her experiences. And Weiss was obsessed with that kind of power structure and having that inheritance and everything. Yeah. And now it's like we've gone flip on these two. And
but they wouldn't. It's interesting that these characters, all the characters, Yang, Blake, Weiss, RWBY not so much, but those three at least would not have come to the realizations at the end of the series if they hadn't gone home. Blake would not have gone to the White Fang if she hadn't gone home.
Right.
Weiss wouldn't. Well, Weiss we know. So Weiss gets kicked out. Well, not kicked out. She gets basically like super grounded.
Mega grounded, and because she pisses off her father in a spectacular fashion.
In an amazing. Well, her thing is, so she's now a war veteran basically, and she comes back to this town, her hometown, where things are blind. They're blind to the outside world.
Well, it seems to me that this entire grim situation has been completely blown out of proportion.
Exactly. It's these people who are raising funds for Beacon, but don't actually know what happened to Beacon. Shit like that. And she realizes that her sister was right, and follows in her sister's footsteps.
Gets the fuck out of there.
And it's I never like out of the main four, Weiss was always my least favorite until this season.
Oh, really? It took you? No, Weiss has actually been my favorite since.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'll tell you.
Weiss has been my favorite actually since about mid-season 2, when they had finally finished removing the stick from her ass.
Oh.
No, because
it's true.
It took a long time, but I appreciate her so much more. And I've actually found this, characters that I start hating, when they actually go through a big character transformation, oftentimes wind up being, like, my favorite characters. Like, go to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I fucking hated Anya for the longest time. Anya may be one of my favorite characters from this. I fucking love Anya.
I think Weiss grew on me once. So during the Battle of Beacon, after Velvet reveals her semblance and her weapon, which I still get chills watching that scene. I will watch that scene over and over and over again. When Weiss gets up and she fights for herself and she gets that guardian, I think that's when I kindly, not to say that I didn't like her,
but that's when she moved
into a much more likable character for me. And then this season, watching her realize that inheritance wasn't everything made me respect her more.
Yeah, no.
I wanted her to bust somebody's shit on her way out, but I can see why not. So, but they all grew into a way that I really liked.
I like to think that she just took like a massive shit in the corner of her room before she left.
Left a big ass hole in the side of the house. Something, yes. So it was just the changes. And then you've got, we talked about the heroes a lot. And we talk about, we've got Crow, who needs help from these kids now because he's hurt. And there was a slight threat of them killing him off, and I'm not entirely sure he's totally safe.
No, he was still in bed at the end of the season, and I'm kind of like sitting there, the entire last episode is just sitting there. Every time they showed Crow, I'm like, he should be dead.
I thought he was gonna die.
There's no way. Like, why are you alive? This is fucked up.
By the end of that final battle, I thought when RWBY came around the side of the house, when they did the picture of her letting go of Crow's hand to go fight the Grimm, thought that was gonna be the last time we saw Crow.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't kill him because I think he's such a fan favorite. Not to say that Rooster Teeth is not incapable of killing fan favorites.
No, they're actually really, really good about, for the most part, hearing out their fans and then utterly ignoring them when it's like a good idea.
When it needs to be ignored. Although Pyrrha's death was day one. That was a Monty thing.
Oh, that's right. They have stated, like, no, Monty was going to always kill Para.
He knew. Jen Brown, who voices her, knew.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, he told her.
It's just like a favor, like, by the way, if this continues to like go, you will kind of be out of a job at some point, type of.
I think it was mostly like, I would assume she had said, like, once when they premiered the episode when she dies, she had gone on Twitter and been like, no, because everybody was like, this is bullshit, Monty would never have blah blah blah, and she came to his defense and was like, no, Monty told me that, like, this was gonna happen. I think it was kind of like when J.K. Rowling told Alan Rickman what Snape was about.
Well, that's
before the book came out.
That true, but that was different because that actually gave details about his motivations.
That's true.
Which and that's the thing. Like, I don't know about. Well, maybe I just find it interesting because I didn't see the connection there of like, well, what would she have been informed? It's just interesting that he would have let her know that, because from my perspective, thinking about it, I would have thought, like, okay, if I tell my actress this, that might, like, affect, like, the way that she's going to play the character or something. But maybe he did want that. Maybe
I think that's kind of what he wanted.
Okay.
And she's somebody who's been so seasoned with Rooster Teeth. She's in RWBY too.
Okay.
She's a major character in RWBY. That it wouldn't have been I'm gonna tell this actress that she's gonna die in 3 episodes and then she's just gonna throw in the towel or whatever. I think he did it to kind of. I would assume he did it to give her a bit of inspiration, or a bit of, this is what your character is really like. Like, you realize how self-sacrificing Pyrrha is.
Right. Okay, I guess that makes sense. That does. Okay, that tracks.
But, so we talk about heroes and we talk about their changes, and then we've got the villains.
The villains in the show are...
The Creepy Crew.
The Creepy Crew is quite interesting. Tyrion is a piece of fucking work.
Weird fuck.
You know, I like him, except they really want him to be the Joker just a little too much.
He gets a little weird.
It's a little...
He's a little less assassin, a little more joke. Yeah, a little less assassin, a little more over the top kind of lunatic, I guess. But he's a great low tier henchman. That
he is, and that's exactly where they have him, so it works.
Because he's obsessed with Salem. He sees her as a goddess.
Right, and Salem is I don't know. Salem's very cool looking, and she's definitely got like the bad boss like attitude thing going on, and it's like
she knows how to punish people.
Right, but I haven't seen very much of her, so I don't know what to think about her. Cinder, as far as the villains go this season, Cinder is...
Well, you realize that she wasn't the boss. Like, she came off... Well, first we had Torchwick. We had Roman, who we assumed was the boss for a whole season and a half.
I miss Torchwick.
I miss Torchwick so much. He was one of my favorite characters.
He was just a great, like, such, like... stereotypical, like, just like,
right, this Clockwork Orange motherfucker.
Yeah, oh god. So
and good. We thought it was him for the longest time because we didn't see Cinder's face for a season and a half. And then we get to Cinder and she's the big bad. And then we realize that there's an even bigger bad that she answers to. And who lives in a place that spawns Grimm. Like,
that's kind of fucking crazy. I'm hoping that she's actually the final boss, because
I can't imagine that it goes much higher.
I hope it doesn't, because at some point we're gonna just be like, all right, so when's Super Saiyan 4? Like,
right. Well, my thought is because her nemesis is Oz. She wanted Oz dead.
Right.
And Oz is, in fan theory, a huge character.
Well, I mean, there's something clearly going on with because so Oz is theoretically, I don't know if it's been confirmed, but theory is that Oz is the old man who gives the maidens their power. Right, and now this barnyard kid who has Oz talking in his head and now shares memories with him and shit.
Who was voiced by the kid who played Alphonse Elric in Fullmetal Alchemist.
Oh! I thought the voice kind of sounded familiar.
Yep,
all right.
So we have Oz in this kid now, and so I don't think the power goes much above Salem, just because if Oz is her nemesis and he's supposed to be like the big good,
right?
Almost.
Well, then there's the two gods that we just recently heard about in
right.
the last World of Remnants, or not? No, actually, no. That was
a story
that he told. That was actually this campfire story.
Yeah.
And that's like probably the only people who would be higher are those two, like the god of light and the god of death and destruction and shit. Like,
right.
The very black and white morality palettes.
Yes, exactly. So I don't think there goes much more higher than that. But you've got Salem, who's created this very interesting power group. Like you've got Tyrion, and then you've got Watts, who's this like steampunky, like he has connections because we see him with Mistral's headmaster and making friends and infiltrating society. So it's interesting the people that she's chosen to surround herself with.
Yeah, and
their goals.
Well, they're very unclear goals that continue to sort of be talked around. I will say that they've been doing a good job of not making it the dialogue sound retired when all they've been doing is dancing around what they're actually talking. They've managed to keep the dialogue fresh the they haven't actually said anything pretty much the entire season.
Well, it's very interesting because normally, and we've talked about this before, when the audience is put into a new show, you are normally put in as a new person. When you're Scrubs, you're JD. When you're, I don't know, anything, if you infiltrate some sort of organization as an audience member, you are brought in as a new person. Not so in Salem's group. Cinder has always been there. If anything, we see it through Emerald and Mercury's eyes.
And even they have some kind of privy as to what the next steps are, or whenever they've asked about it, have been told, don't worry about it.
Exactly.
So we're just literally
in the dark.
We're literally just flies on the wall, and we just joined.
Exactly.
We've just joined in on these meetings. We haven't had a chance to see what the other meetings are, and we're just flies on the walls going, the fuck is up with this shit?
And then we know that there's trouble coming for Team RWBY. Like that's all literally they go, oh, that girl with the silver eyes, stop our main objective and take care of her.
Which that's interesting with the silver eyes thing, because we still have not totally gotten an explanation on the silver eyes thing.
No, and I think we'll get more of that. Well, obviously we're going to get more of that
at some
next
point we'll
season.
have to get more of that.
But the fact that it was such a major thing, and in anime it's always a big thing. Like that's a very major trope in anime.
Oh, silver eyes? Yeah, absolutely, because,
and being physically different.
Right.
So, yeah, I think we'll get more, but it's interesting that RWBY, well, yes, fucked Cinder up, like, big time.
She has no idea how she did it.
She has no idea. She has no control over those powers.
And we don't even know, what powers those, because it's not a semblance. No. It's not dust. Like, we're looking at basically a third magic type here.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes you wonder what powers, like, Ozpin and, we were just talking about her for, like,
Salem,
thank you. What powers, like, they've got. Like,
considering
they have other stuff going on.
And Oz must, considering he went head-to-head with Cinder, who had maiden powers.
I mean, yeah.
And he, yes, quote-unquote died, but he wasn't vanquished.
Right.
Like, to the point of never returning. He's back in some form.
Although it's entirely possible that somehow Salem was, like, unaware of that's how the transfer process happened, that he could do it from sort of an astral point.
Right.
Because the maidens can't. The other maiden still has to be alive to transfer it to it might be that the old man does not need to have that going on.
Right.
Ooh. Or just had a thought. What if he is alive, and what if Cinder left him alive because he revealed to her, if you kill me, the maidens lose their power?
Yeah, that could be part of it, too.
That would be craziness.
And that's the thing so we saw all this character growth, and Cinder, who got knocked from this cocky psycho who has no problem telling anybody what to do, including the leader of the White Fang, this giant terrorist organization. She gets knocked down many, many pegs and becomes obsessive over Ruby and becomes obsessive over literally regaining her voice. And the fact that somebody that powerful
got messed up
and she answers to somebody else. But we don't see that. Like, Tyrion, he's a fanatic. We know that.
Yeah,
we've known that for ages. He says "my lady" and he's the adoration in his voice. Cinder's never gave that feeling.
No, Cinder kind of just like has the boss-employee relationship with her, really.
Right.
Maybe a little bit more like, I don't know, aunt-niece sort of thing. It's certainly not maternal.
No. Mentor-mentee, maybe.
Maybe. But, like, it's something loose along those lines. It's not, it's certainly not the admiration that Tyrion gives. I mean, Tyrion is just totally a fanatic, though. Like,
yeah.
that's the... Like Tyrion, he's fun, but, again, he sort of bores me after a while, because
he's a very typical character.
Yeah.
He's a very typical character. So it'll be interesting to see now that we're getting everybody starting to come back together and starting to come back to a conflict. Because now that Ruby's in Mistral, now what? Like, that's kind of what it is like, you got there. Now what?
And that's the other thing, too, is that normally we've been sort of in on Ruby's plans. Like, we sort of caught up with her this season halfway through that journey, and we don't know exactly why she took it. Like, we never really got an explanation. We got this vague idea that they were going to sort of meet up with some other military-ish force or other hunters or something, ? Like, there was sort of an impression given of, like there was a unifying effort of some kind. But outside of that, we got no direct explanation. Like, you kind of wonder, like, if she's even really got a particular plan.
She was like, that's the next big part, beacon of power, quite literally. Let's go there.
I mean, that might have literally just been it.
But I'm kind of hoping now that we're in a new place, because Mistral, again, a part of an academy, I hope we get to see the old teams that we got to see during the tournament.
That'd be good.
That'd be a lot of fun.
That'd be. I mean, this season has been very good. We needed a season like that. Like, it would have been bad for them to try to just get right back into the groove of things after the season that they delivered in 3.
They couldn't just show it in Mistral.
Yeah, no. And in fact, like, then I don't think that they can even sink back into their old groove per se.
No, definitely not.
But I feel like they do need to find a groove now, because this season had no groove. And a lot of what I've heard of complaints about is the pacing of this season, and I can't say I disagree. Like, this season runs together very strangely, and there's sort of like, it feels like watching that first half of season 1 again, where there had just been way too much dialogue to fight ratio.
Yeah, but I think at the same time it's a new storytelling. It's a new way of storytelling for them. Not to give because I totally agree. The pacing is a little bit different because you have so many. So season 3, it was a lot of characters, but they were all in the same place. We weren't invested in I didn't care about Team Funky's backstory. I just thought they were cool.
Right. No, they had to split the time on this one. And I don't know if the time split didn't bother me necessarily as much. It was actually the pacing inside of scenes that actually bothered me more than anything else. And it was mostly Team RWBY. But Blake had a couple of, like, there were just sort of, like, some scenes where she was, like, back in hometown that I felt like were a little bit longer than they needed to be at certain points. And, like, they sort of, like, re-rounded to, like, conversations that you felt like they sort of, like, already had. I mean, which, granted, mimics real life to a certain extent. We'd, like, wind up having the same conversations over and over again. But it's not necessarily interesting to see.
Right.
So, I don't know. There was something off about, and it may have just simply been there was so much to set up and so many things to do that the pacing was just going to naturally feel weird. But there's something to be said about the pacing being a little
off. And I don't think it helps that not a majority, but there were at least 5 episodes that were World of Remnant episodes that took up airtime that could have been something else.
No, I mean, that I'm fine with, though, because it means that they actually prepared their episodes.
Right.
That's the thing. Like, the editing, like, I'm sure it was a nightmare with this, with them jumping back and forth with scenes and stuff so much. And again, like, I think the scripts maybe just did call for some odd pacing at certain points. Like, so you're trying to, like, edit all of that and stuff, you want to make sure you're doing it right. And some of that can be kind of tricky to like put together correctly and make it flow. And so coming out with a world of remnants instead of an incomplete, it's better than the 4-minute episode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The fact that these episodes were longer was that's the thing about the early Rooster Teeth stuff. It's early RWBY. It's early RWBY. I hate watching it episode by episode because by the time it's all loaded, it's 2 minutes, 4 minutes. We're so used to like 21-minute episodes.
I mean,
at
this point, Rooster Teeth, I think, kind of embraced the fact that while there's some episodic nature to what they do, they write stories in seasons.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that's how things play. That's I think that's the way. Like when you watch RWBY, it's like best to just watch a season of RWBY. Just pick a season of RWBY to watch and watch it as if you were watching a movie.
Absolutely.
Because it's just it flows better that way.
Yeah.
Honestly, and everything, like the episodes bump up against each other very nicely. And in this season, I wasn't a particular fan of the intro anyway, so like I didn't.
Oh, see, I liked it.
I mean, I liked it actually the intro. I liked the actual intro, like visuals and everything.
Yeah.
Wasn't that crazy about the song?
The song wasn't as catchy to me. I wasn't as attached to the song as I was previous season, so I totally get you there. Last season 3 song I liked way better.
Yeah, I thought that was.
But it was very interesting. I like this season's intro visually. I also like their animation style visually. They changed their animation style.
Yeah, it was different, and it took me a little bit to adjust, but I liked it overall. I thought it worked very nicely for what they're doing, and I think that they were able to do some things in the interesting with this animation that they weren't going to really be able to pull off as smoothly with the software that they had been using before.
Definitely.
So I think those were all really good choices. I think that some of the Grimm this season looked phenomenal because of the animation style that they chose to do it with.
Yeah, we got some new Grimm, which was really nice because as much as I love watching RWBY, cut the head off of a Beowulf or, a giant raven, being able to see her, kick the ass of a giant ape is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that was pretty sweet. And then the Horseman of the Apocalypse,
yes.
I guess.
Yeah, which makes now we have lore of we know how they're made, but certain shapes form because of certain things. Like, how was this one formed and how old is it?
Yeah, no, that was the interesting thing. Like, what do you go back? Because like these things are echoes of very, very specific.
Right.
Because
of very specific emotions.
Because the little brother basically couldn't actually do things himself. He had to sort of mimic what his older brother did.
Right.
And so what was he mimicking?
Yeah.
Because honestly, like there's like because man comes after all of that. Theoretically, except the Grimm are still forming and still kind of get birthed the same way. So who did what that was so extremely evil that they got a Grimm made after them on their horse? Like, holy shit.
Yeah, so...
Like, that has got to be, like, some intensely bad carnage happening right there to manifest that.
Yeah. It overall, the season was very much about building the world. Building the world and giving us answers, and building the world and giving us way more questions.
And that's cool, actually, because I think it was a cool acknowledgement on their part that the story sort of had to come to a pause to a certain extent, which it really, like, in a lot of ways has. Like, as far as, like, what's actually happened, well, people kind of recuperated, and, like, Weiss lost her fortune, and everyone's headed for Mistral, except for Blake, who's going to try to take over the White Fang.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
Yeah, that was... Oh, wow, that's the entire... They mean storyline-wise, that's the entire... Oh, I'm sorry, Crow got poisoned.
Yeah.
It's like the entire season, as far as, like, what actually progressed storyline-wise. But we got all this background detail. And I think that's really good because it's like they needed to pause, essentially, because now, like we were talking about, it's going to be a new groove. You can't go back to the old groove after Season 3. So they gave themselves an entire season to flush out their world, make us understand their world a little better, progress the story just enough where they can take us all to a place where things are on track enough where they can find a groove and make this show feel a certain way again, because this season was in its feel a little all over the place, which makes sense because
everybody was all over the place.
Everybody was all over the place, so it really matched up. Okay, we are definitely running out of time here.
Yes.
We could probably talk about RWBY for fucking ever. But anyway, if you guys haven't seen it and for some reason are still listening to this, definitely go check out RWBY.
Definitely.
Check out Rooster Teeth in general. Really, that
Good.
production company has just been phenomenal. We've talked about it a few times now, and they're just tremendous. I love that they went from Red versus Blue to where they are.
Oh, yeah.
It's really quite an incredible story. But anyway, you folks all have yourselves an excellent evening, and we will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.
The music for the Geek for All show has been provided by Fat Street Beats, Ben Sound, and Purple Planet. Please support their individual pages.